tutorial on using FigureFirst, which is a layout-first approach to making scientific figures. And so I'm assuming in this video that you've already taken a quick glance at our GitHub page, maybe read some of the other materials. You've already gone through the installation, which is very easy. To install the Python side, you simply do pip install FigureFirst, and to install the Inkscape and extensions, you can follow these instructions here. And so this video is essentially going to be a little video companion to this quick start guide, giving you the basic usage so you can get started very quickly. So we're essentially going to follow these instructions here with maybe a few little additions here and there. So the first step is to lay out your figure the way you would like it to look using Inkscape. So we're going to go over to Inkscape, and then essentially we just draw boxes where we want our figure axes to end up. So let's suppose that we want to start out with one tall one here, and then we'll have two smaller panels here. And we can make these two smaller panels the same size. I'm just going to copy and paste this one so that we've got two the same size. And then we can use the nice Inkscape tools to align things. So for example, I can make sure that these two are aligned like so, and we'll align these guys here to the top, and these two, we'll make sure that they're aligned on the side. Okay, so now we are going to label our axes using the FigureFirst extension. So if I grab this guy here, for example, and then go to Extensions, FigureFirst, I'm going to choose Tag Axis, and let's label this one, we'll label it A for panel A, and so it does its little thing. You can close that, and the nice thing about Inkscape is it comes with a built-in XML editor, so you can actually see what happened. So if you go into the XML editor, this shows you the structure of all the objects in this document. And so this is the rectangle that we currently have selected. If you chose a different one, you'd see it. It shows you which one you've selected. So we're going to take that one. If you click this guy here, now you can see what that extension did is it created this new object here where we've got our FigureFirst name A. So if you decided later that you wanted to change the name, you could simply go in and edit this to be something else. You know, we could call it panel A, but we'll leave it to just be A for now. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and do that for the other two axes as well. So extensions, FigureFirst, tag axis. We'll call this one B. Of course, you have to make sure that they are, well, generally speaking, you'd have to make sure that they're all unique. If you're doing a bunch, you can just leave this little window open, click the next object, and call this one C. Okay. And so the way I'm going to suggest using FigureFirst is to use the sort of figures and axes option. This down the road, this will make a lot of things easier. So let's suppose that these two panels belong together, and you would like to sort of treat them as one sort of subset of panels within your larger figure. If you group these together, on the Mac, that's Command G. On Linux, I think it's Control G. Now these have become one object, so in the XML editor you can see that this group now has these two rectangles inside of it. Now if you grab that group and you go to Extensions, FigureFirst, Tag Figure, we can give this some unique name. Let's call it Fig2. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing to this panel, even though there's just one, just for simplicity and consistency across everything. I'm going to hit Control G for this guy too. So now it also is a group, although there's only one rectangle in the group. And I'm going to also tag that figure, and I'll tag that one as Fig1. Okay, so now we have our figure layout all ready to go. And so we can just go ahead and save this one. And so I'm going to find my spot where I'm saving these. Okay, and we'll call it this, and we want the SVG format. And then we'll hit save. Okay, so now we're going to go over to a Jupyter notebook to start interacting with that SVG from the Python side. So going back to our quick start example, we can now, we're moving on to step 2. And so I'm just going to go ahead and copy some of these lines because that's the easiest way to get them in there. So we're going to import FigureFirst, and then we're going to, I'll also go ahead and grab, import some things to actually make some plots. So import numpy as np, and import matplotlib. Okay, so now the first step is going to be to grab our layout here. We'll split this up there, and you can check to make sure that we are in the correct directory and that our figure template is indeed correctly named. So fifi template.svg, that is in fact what I had as the default there. So if we go ahead and run this, it should grab a Python object corresponding to that SVG. And so it's going to show you here the axes that it's pulled out. And if you now look at the layout object, you can see it's this FigureFirst object. So now the way you would interact with it is if you want to grab one of the matplotlib axes corresponding to one of the objects, you're essentially going to just use this command here. Now I labeled them slightly differently than that template, so for me it was figure 1A. You can always double check that by going back here, and so this was figure 1 and this panel was A. Okay, so figure 1A, so this is our axis corresponding to that panel, and so now we could plot something in there. So let's make some points here, make sure that, yeah. Okay, and can go ahead and plot some lines in there. So now we have made those plots, and now if we wanted to, if you want to make things look a little nicer, you could make some adjustments. Our kind of standard is these commands here, which just set the bounds for your axis, and generally I end up using a smaller font size than the default, but let's make it 8 in this case. So if we run those, that'll just change the look of your plot a little bit. And now we have to, now we're going to, the next two commands will save that figure. And so I'll grab this guy here. Okay, so this first line is going to take everything that we've done for figure 1 and dump it into the SVG object. And then we're going to write that SVG object, and we're going to write it to the same file name as before. So it'll be saved in there. So if I run those, of course you don't see anything having happened, but now if you were to go back to Inkscape, and of course nothing has changed here yet, but if you go to File, Revert, it'll open the new SVG. And so now you can see that at least you see these little axes have popped up there. You can't see the plot, and that's because of that green background. So now we can go to our layers, and you can see that that figure 1 layer has now appeared here. And that's where the data is from the matplotlib command. You could turn off the FigureFirst layers, and now you can see your plot there. Okay. So now let's go ahead and make some plots to the other two panels, and we'll do that in one kind of cleaner block. So we'll need to grab our layout again. So just to make it clear, I'm going to do panels B through C. Okay, so we're going to grab our layout, which is this edited layout that already has the figure 1 stuff in there. We'll grab our new axes, and now there's going to be 2 of them, and these are figure 2, B, and C. So we'll call this ax B and ax C. And just for simplicity, we'll go ahead and plot the same things in there. We'll make the same nice adjustments, except maybe on the top one, our B, we will only show the left spine and skip the bottom one. And on C, we'll show both of them. And this command will actually set the font size for all of the axes within that figure, so this should actually set the font size for both ax B and C. And then we'll go ahead and save that. And of course, you'll have to update this to figure 2 because that's the figure that we've been editing here. And then we're going to go ahead and write it. And so if we run that, it shows you, what it's done there. And now if you go to Inkscape and you hit revert, yes, we don't care about saving those changes. And now you can see these guys have populated, so we can turn off that layer there, and now your axes are exactly where you wanted them. Great. And you can see your 2 figures have showed up separately, so you can actually turn off these layers independent of one another, which is very convenient. It also means that you can go in and edit the data in these panels separately. So now if I wanted to go in and update the data for this plot, I don't have to also update these 2. This starts to make a lot more sense for much bigger figures. So now the real power of FigureFirst is, let's say that for some reason you decide you want to completely change the layout. That's now very easy to do without even running any code at all. So I'm going to turn off these 2, and let's say that we've changed our mind. We actually want these 2 to be separate from one another. So I can grab one element of the group on my Mac, that's Control-Shift. So I'm going to move this guy over here. We will can realign these so they look nice. And then let's suppose that this one we actually wanted it to be big and horizontal like that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and save this template now. And now if we go back to our Jupyter notebook, we can just run through this whole same sequence again. And I don't even need to really look at anything. Okay, and now if we go back to Inkscape and we hit File, Revert, give it a moment to think. Oh right, we've turned off those layers, so that's why. So if we turn them back on, they'll show up. We'd probably want to make some changes to the code just so that the spines that we've chosen look nice. But as you can see, it's very easy to update your layout now graphically rather than changing all of the matplotlib code. That's all there is to it. So enjoy using this new tool.